For 5 years, she sat in silence. 5 years without a single word, without laughter, without tears that made sound. Every specialist said the same thing. Permanent selective mutism, trauma-induced, irreversible. Her father spent $14 million trying to prove them wrong. Private clinics in Switzerland, speech therapists from Boston Children's, psychiatrists who charged $3,000 per hour. Nothing worked. His daughter remained locked inside herself, silent as a grave. Then a housekeeper arrived who wasn't supposed to be there, who broke every rule in the manual, who did something so reckless it could have destroyed them both. What happened next will leave you speechless. Marcus Thornton was a billionaire. Hedge fund manager, penthouse overlooking Central Park, the kind of wealth that makes problems disappear with a phone call. Except this problem wouldn't disappear. His daughter, Sophia, 7 years old, hadn't spoken in 5 years. Not since the morning she watched her mother die. It happened in their Connecticut estate. Sarah Thornton, Marcus's wife, collapsed in the garden while Sophia played nearby. Aneurysm. No warning, no time to say goodbye. The 2-year-old ran to her mother, shook her, screamed for help in the only word she knew. Mama, Mama, wake up. But Mama didn't wake up. And after that day, Sophia never spoke again. The doctors called it selective mutism triggered by catastrophic trauma. Her hearing was intact, they said, but compromised. She'd been born with mild hearing loss, manageable with devices, but the psychological shock of losing her mother had created a barrier nothing could penetrate. She could hear, they insisted, just not well. And she chose not to speak. Marcus didn't accept that. Couldn't accept that his little girl would live in silence forever, that she'd never call him daddy again, never laugh at his terrible jokes, never tell him about her day. So he did what he always did when faced with an impossible problem. He threw money at it. $14 million over 5 years. Residential treatment programs, experimental therapies, specialists flown in from Tokyo and Stockholm. They tried everything: art therapy, music therapy, equine therapy, sensory integration, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. Sophia sat through it all, compliant but absent, her dark eyes watching everyone like she was behind glass they couldn't break through. The Thornton penthouse reflected its owner's grief. 56th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the park, 12,000 square feet of marble and silence. Staff moved through the rooms like ghosts, speaking in whispers if they spoke at all. Marcus had installed rules after the third therapist quit. No sudden noises. No music unless Sophia initiated it. No attempts to force interaction. Let her come to you, they said. Give her space. Give her time. 5 years later, she still hadn't come to anyone. Marcus sat in his study most evenings, staring at the family portrait above the fireplace. Sarah smiled back at him, frozen at 34, her hand resting on 2-year-old Sophia's shoulder. In the painting, Sophia was laughing, her mouth open mid-giggle, her eyes bright with joy. That little girl didn't exist anymore. The child who lived in this apartment now was a shadow, silent, careful, moving through life like she was trying not to be noticed. The guilt ate at Marcus like acid. He'd been at the office that morning. Always at the office, closing deals, building the fund, making money they didn't need. Sarah had called him twice. He'd sent both calls to voicemail. Too busy. Too important. By the time he called back, she was already gone. Sophia had been alone with her mother's body for 40 minutes before the gardener found them. 40 minutes. Long enough for a 2-year-old's mind to shatter into pieces Marcus couldn't put back together. He'd tried everything. Spent everything. Begged God for answers, even though he'd stopped believing in God the day Sarah died. But heaven stayed silent. The specialists kept shaking their heads, and his daughter kept disappearing further into herself. What Marcus didn't know was that the answer wasn't coming from a $14 million treatment program. It was coming from a woman he was about to hire for $18 an hour. A woman who was supposed to clean his floors and stay invisible. A woman who was about to break every rule and change everything. Her name was Elena Reyes, and she was about to do the unthinkable. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena Reyes stood outside the Thornton building on a Tuesday morning in March, staring up at the glass tower that seemed to pierce the sky. Her hands trembled as she clutched her bag. This was it. Her last chance. Back in Queens, her son Miguel was lying in a hospital bed. 12 years old, diagnosed with leukemia 6 months ago. The treatments were working, thank God, but the bills were drowning her. Even with insurance, the copays, the medications, the special diet, it was $60,000 she didn't have. The hospital had been patient, but patience had limits. They'd started using words like payment plan and collections and medical bankruptcy. Elena couldn't let that happen. Miguel deserved better. He deserved every chance to live, to grow up, to have the life cancer was trying to steal from him. So when the staffing agency called about a position at a Billionaire'S penthouse, $18 an hour, 6 days a week, she took it without asking questions. She didn't care about the wealthy family or the fancy address. She just needed the paycheck. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Chun, met her in the lobby. Stern face, perfect posture, the kind of woman who noticed everything and forgot nothing. "You're Elena?" "Yes, ma'am." "You'll clean. You'll be invisible. You'll never, ever interact with Mr. Thornton's daughter." Mrs. Chin's eyes were hard. "Do you understand?" Elena nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" Because the last 3 housekeepers didn't. They tried to help. They thought they knew better than the specialists. They were all terminated within a month. Elena swallowed. "I'm just here to work, ma'am. I need this job." Mrs. Chin studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "Good. Follow me." The elevator ride to the 56th floor was silent. Elena kept her eyes down, her heart pounding. The doors opened onto a private foyer, all white marble and expensive art. Everything was perfect, polished, cold. Like a museum, not a home. As Mrs. Chun led her through the apartment, explaining her duties, Elena couldn't help noticing the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating, like the air itself was holding its breath. And then she saw her, a small girl sitting in the corner of the living room, perfectly still, staring out the window at Central Park far below. 7 years old, maybe, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore noise-canceling headphones, the expensive kind, and she didn't turn around when they entered. Didn't acknowledge them at all. "That's Sophia," Mrs. Chin said quietly. "Mr. Thornton's daughter. You don't speak to her. You don't look at her directly. You don't exist in her world. Are we clear?" "Yes, ma'am." But as Elena looked at the little girl sitting alone by that massive window, something in her chest tightened. She'd seen that posture before. The way Sophia's shoulders hunched forward, protective. The way her hands gripped the edge of the window seat, like she was holding on to something no one else could see. Elena knew that look. She'd seen it in the mirror after her husband died. After the accident that left her alone with a 5-year-old son and bills she couldn't pay. That look meant, "I'm here, but I'm not really here. I'm surviving, not living." "Elena." Mrs. Chin's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "Did you hear me?" "Yes, ma'am. I understand." "Good. You start in the kitchen. Deep clean the cabinets, then the pantry. Mr. Thornton likes things spotless." Elena nodded and followed Mrs. Chun toward the kitchen. But before they left the living room, she glanced back once more. Sophia hadn't moved. Still staring out that window, still wearing those headphones, still alone in her silence. Elena whispered a prayer under her breath. "Lord, watch over that child." She didn't know it yet, but God was already answering. And the answer was going to cost Elena everything. Days passed in careful routine. Elena arrived at 6 in the morning, left at 4 in the afternoon. She cleaned floors, wiped counters, organized closets. She kept her head down like Mrs. Chun instructed. The other staff barely spoke to her. They moved through the penthouse like well-trained machines, efficient and emotionless. But Elena couldn't stop watching Sophia. Every morning, same pattern. The girl would sit in her window seat in the living room, staring out at the city. Sometimes she'd have books spread around her, picture books mostly, but she never seemed to read them. Just stared. At lunch, the private tutor would arrive, a thin woman named Dr. Graves who spoke in hushed tones and never smiled. Sophia would sit at the dining table, completing worksheets in silence, communicating only through nods or pointing. The tutor would leave. Sophia would return to her window. The afternoon would pass in terrible, heavy silence. No other children ever came to visit. No playdates, no birthday parties, no laughter echoing through those massive rooms. Just one small girl, alone with her silence and her grief. Elena's heart broke a little more each day. She noticed other things too. The way Sophia would tilt her head sometimes, straining to hear something. The way she'd touch her left ear, almost absently, then wince slightly. The way she'd turn up the volume on her tablet when watching videos, even with her headphones on, turning it higher and higher until the sound leaked out. One afternoon, 2 weeks after Elena started, she was dusting the living room while Sophia sat in her usual spot. The girl's tablet sat beside her, playing some cartoon, but even with the headphones on, Elena could hear it from across the room. Too loud. Painfully loud. Sophia reached up and touched her left ear again. That same wince crossed her face. Elena's chest tightened. She'd seen that gesture before too. Her abuela, her grandmother, used to do that before they discovered the infection that had damaged her hearing. Before the simple surgery that restored it. Elena bit her lip. Not your business, she told herself. You're here to clean, not to diagnose. Mrs. Chin's warning echoed in her mind. Don't interact. Don't interfere. Don't exist in her world. But that night, lying in her small apartment in Queens while Miguel slept in the next room, Elena couldn't stop thinking about it. About Sophia's face when she touched her ear. About the way she tilted her head, straining. About the volume turned up so high it hurt to hear. She thought about the specialists Marcus Thornton had hired. $14 million, Mrs. Chun had mentioned once. Every expert in the world. Surely they'd checked her ears. Surely they'd examined everything. But then again, Elena thought, sometimes the obvious things are the easiest to miss. Sometimes people look so hard for complicated answers that they walk right past the simple ones. She picked up her phone, hesitated, then texted her cousin Rosa. Rosa was a nurse at Mount Sinai, worked in pediatrics. Quick question. If a child has hearing loss and trauma-induced mutism, would doctors automatically check for ear infections or blockages? Rosa's reply came 10 minutes later. Depends. If they're focused on the psychological trauma, they might assume the hearing issues are related to that. Why? Elena stared at her phone. She couldn't explain. Couldn't risk her job by admitting she was paying too much attention to her employer's daughter. Just curious. Thanks. Everything okay with Miguel? He's good. Tired but good. I'm praying for him. And for you. Elena set her phone down and closed her eyes. Lord, she whispered into the darkness. I don't know what you want from me. That little girl is suffering. I can see it. But I can't lose this job. Miguel needs me. We need this money. Silence. Just the sound of the city outside her window and Miguel's soft breathing from the other room. Elena pulled her blanket up and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. All she could see was Sophia, alone by that window, touching her ear, wincing in pain that no one else seemed to notice. The next morning, Elena arrived at the penthouse to find it in controlled chaos. Mrs. Chun was directing 2 other staff members in setting up the dining room. Fine china, crystal glasses, flower arrangements that probably cost more than Elena's monthly rent. Mr. Thornton is having dinner guests tonight, Mrs. Chun announced. Everything must be perfect. Elena, I need you to deep clean the powder room and polish all the mirrors in the east wing. Yes, ma'am. Elena worked through the morning, staying out of everyone's way. Around noon, she was cleaning the hallway when she heard voices from the living room. Mr. Thornton's deep voice, unfamiliar to her. She'd barely seen him in 2 weeks. He left before she arrived and came home after she left. But today he was home, and he had someone with him. I appreciate you coming on short notice, Dr. Wellington. Of course, Marcus. You said there's been no improvement. None. 5 years, David. 5 years, and she's exactly the same. Elena slowed her cleaning, not quite eavesdropping but unable to help overhearing. The selective mutism is deeply entrenched, the other man said. Dr. Wellington, apparently. Combined with her pre-existing hearing loss, the hearing aids are supposed to help with that. They do to a degree. But Marcus, you have to understand. Sophia's trauma is profound. She watched her mother die. Her brain has created this protective barrier. Until she feels safe enough to break through it. How much longer? Marcus's voice cracked. How much longer do I wait? How much more money do I spend? How many more specialists do I call? I don't know, Dr. Wellington said quietly. I wish I could give you a timeline. But the mind heals on its own schedule, not ours. She's 7 years old. She should be in school, making friends, living her life. Instead, she sits by that window all day like she's waiting for something that's never going to come. I know. I'm sorry. There was a long silence. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes I think she's waiting for her mother. Watching for Sarah to come home. Like if she waits long enough, stares hard enough, it'll undo what happened. Elena's throat tightened. She stopped cleaning entirely, her hands frozen on the mirror she was polishing. That's possible, Dr. Wellington said gently. Children often struggle with the permanence of death, the finality of it. I don't know how to help her. I've tried everything, and nothing works. Nothing touches her. Keep doing what you're doing. Be present. Be patient. Let her know you're there when she's ready. And if she's never ready? Dr. Wellington didn't answer that. The silence stretched long and terrible. Finally, footsteps. The men were leaving the living room. Elena quickly resumed her cleaning, keeping her head down as they passed her in the hallway. Marcus Thornton barely glanced at her. His face was haggard, gray with exhaustion and grief. He looked like a man drowning in slow motion. After they disappeared around the corner, Elena stood alone in the hallway, her heart pounding. She'd heard too much, understood too much. That little girl wasn't just grieving. She was trapped, locked inside herself, waiting for a mother who would never return. And her father, for all his wealth and power, was helpless to save her. Elena walked back toward the living room, slowly, carefully. Sophia sat in her usual spot, headphones on, staring out the window. The tablet beside her played another cartoon, volume turned up so loud Elena could hear every word from across the room. As Elena watched, Sophia reached up and touched her left ear again. The wince. That telltale wince. Something clicked in Elena's mind. A memory from years ago, when Miguel was 5. He'd stopped responding to her, started turning up the TV louder and louder. She'd thought he was ignoring her, being difficult. But Rosa had insisted she take him to the doctor. Ear infection. Severe enough that fluid had built up behind his eardrum, blocking sound. One simple course of antibiotics, and suddenly Miguel could hear again, could focus again, came back to himself. Sometimes, the doctor had told her, children can't tell us when something's wrong. They just show us. Elena stared at Sophia, really looked at her. The way she tilted her head, the way she touched her ear, the way she seemed to be straining, always straining, to hear the world around her. What if everyone was wrong? What if the specialists were so focused on the trauma, on the psychological damage, that they'd missed something simple, something fixable? Elena's hands trembled. She couldn't. She shouldn't. She'd be fired. Worse than fired. She'd be accused of overstepping, of endangering the child, of thinking she knew better than $14 million worth of specialists. But what if she was right? What if this little girl was suffering from something that could be fixed, and everyone was too busy looking at complicated answers to see the obvious one? Elena closed her eyes. Lord, she breathed, show me what to do. Please. When she opened her eyes, Sophia had turned slightly. For the first time in 2 weeks, the little girl was looking directly at her. Those dark eyes, so much like her mother's in the painting, studied Elena's face. Elena's breath caught. She should look away, should follow the rules, should be invisible. But instead, she smiled. A small, gentle smile. And she gave Sophia a tiny wave. For a long moment, nothing happened. Sophia just stared, her expression unreadable. Then, so slowly it almost didn't happen, Sophia raised her hand. A small wave back. Barely there, but real. Elena's heart cracked wide open. That night, after her shift ended, Elena didn't go straight home. She stopped at the library branch near the subway station and used one of the public computers. She searched everything she could find about selective mutism, about childhood trauma, about hearing loss in children. And then she searched something else. Ear blockage misdiagnosed as hearing loss. Pages and pages of results. Stories of children whose hearing problems weren't nerve damage or genetic conditions, but simple blockages. Earwax buildup, fluid accumulation, foreign objects. Things that could be fixed. Things that specialists sometimes missed when they were looking for more complicated explanations. She found one case study that made her hands shake. A 7-year-old girl in Boston, diagnosed with progressive hearing loss, fitted with expensive hearing aids, enrolled in special programs. 2 years later, a school nurse noticed the child constantly touching her ear. One simple examination revealed a massive earwax impaction pressing against her eardrum, blocking 80% of her hearing. One removal procedure, and her hearing returned completely. The hearing aids she'd been wearing were actually making things worse, pushing the blockage deeper. Elena stared at the screen, her mind racing. She thought about Sophia's expensive hearing aids, about the way the girl wore them all day, every day, about the way she still seemed to struggle to hear, still turned the volume up too high. still tilted her head and strained. What if those hearing aids were doing the same thing? What if there was something blocking her ear and the devices were making it worse? Elena logged off the computer and sat there in the quiet library, her heart pounding. She had no proof, no training, no right to even think these thoughts. If she was wrong, if she said something and caused problems, she'd lose her job, lose the income Miguel needed, lose everything. But if she was right, and she said nothing, that little girl would continue suffering in silence, would continue sitting by that window, alone with pain no one else could see. Elena thought about Miguel, about the nights she'd sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand, praying for anyone to help him, to save him, to care enough to look past the diagnosis and see her son. God had sent people, nurses who went the extra mile, doctors who listened, a social worker who helped her navigate the insurance nightmare, strangers who became angels. Was this her turn? Was this her moment to be the one who looked when everyone else had stopped looking? Elena picked up her bag and walked out into the March evening. The subway ride home felt longer than usual. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning, wouldn't stop showing her Sophia's face, that wince, that tilt of the head, that desperate straining to hear. When she got home, Miguel was at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, Mama. Hey, baby. How you feeling?" "Good. Tired, but good." He went back to his math worksheet, his bald head bent over the paper, his thin shoulders hunched in concentration. Elena watched him, her throat tight. He was alive. He was fighting. He was here because doctors had looked at him and seen past the scary diagnosis to the treatments that might work. Because people had cared enough to try. Didn't Sophia deserve the same? Didn't every child deserve someone who looked hard enough, cared enough, tried even when it was risky? That night, after Miguel went to bed, Elena knelt beside her bed and prayed. Not a quick prayer, a desperate one. The kind of prayer you pray when you're standing at a crossroads and you don't know which way to go. "Lord, I'm scared. I'm so scared. I don't want to lose this job. Miguel needs me. But that little girl needs someone too. Everyone's given up on her. They think she's broken in ways that can't be fixed. But what if they're wrong? What if I'm the only one who's noticing? What if you put me in that house for a reason?" She waited in the silence, tears streaming down her face. "I need you to show me what to do. I need a sign. Because I can't do this on my own. I can't risk everything unless I know it's what you want from me." The apartment was quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic below. No voice from heaven. No burning bush. Just silence. But in that silence, Elena felt something. A knowing. A certainty that settled in her chest like a stone. She was supposed to watch. Supposed to wait. And when the moment came, she was supposed to act, even if it cost her everything. Elena wiped her eyes and climbed into bed. Sleep came slowly, but when it did, she dreamed of a little girl by a window, finally turning away from the glass, finally looking toward the light. 3 weeks passed. Elena watched Sophia every day, documenting what she saw. The way the girl's hearing seemed worse in the mornings. The way she'd press her palm against her left ear and hold it there, like she was trying to relieve pressure. The way she'd stopped wearing her left hearing aid entirely, leaving it on the table untouched. And no one noticed. Not the tutor. Not Mrs. Chun. Not even Marcus Thornton, who came home late and left early, drowning in work because it was easier than facing his daughter's silence. On a Thursday afternoon in late March, everything changed. Elena was cleaning the living room when Sophia suddenly stood up from her window seat. The girl swayed, caught herself on the wall, then pressed both hands to her left ear. Her face contorted in pain. Elena dropped her cleaning cloth. "Sophia?" The girl didn't respond. Couldn't hear her. She stumbled toward the hallway, one hand still pressed to her ear, the other reaching for the wall. Elena followed, her heart racing. "Sophia, baby, what's wrong?" Sophia made it to the bathroom before her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the tile floor, tears streaming down her face. Silent tears. Always silent. Elena knelt beside her. "Can I look? Please let me look." Sophia turned her head slightly, giving permission through pain. Elena gently tilted the girl's head toward the bathroom light and looked into her left ear. Her breath stopped. There, clearly visible even without medical equipment, was a mass. Dark, glistening, pressed so deep it was touching the eardrum. Not earwax. Something else. Dense, biological, swollen with infection. "Oh, baby," Elena whispered. "Oh, sweet girl. How long has this been hurting you?" Sophia just cried, her small body shaking. Elena's hands trembled. She knew what she was seeing. Her abuela had suffered the same thing. A cholesteatoma, a benign growth that could destroy hearing if left untreated. It explained everything. The worsening hearing, the pain, the pressure. And if it was pressing against Sophia's eardrum, it could be affecting her balance, her ability to process sound, everything. The hearing aids Sophia wore hadn't been helping. They'd been pushing against the growth, making it worse, causing pain the girl couldn't articulate because she wouldn't speak. 5 years. 5 years of specialists examining this child, and somehow they'd all missed it. Or maybe, Elena thought with sudden clarity, they'd seen it years ago and dismissed it as minor. Maybe they'd been so focused on the trauma that they'd stopped actually looking at the physical symptoms. Elena stood up, decision made. I'm calling your father. But before she could move, her phone rang. Miguel's school. Her hands shook as she answered. Mrs. Reyes? Miguel collapsed during gym class. We've called an ambulance. They're taking him to Queens General. The world tilted. I'm coming. I'm coming right now. She hung up and looked at Sophia, still crying on the bathroom floor. Her son needed her. This child needed help. She couldn't do both. Mrs. Chun. Elena's voice echoed through the penthouse. Mrs. Chun, help. The housekeeper appeared instantly, her face furious. Why are you shouting? What's? She saw Sophia on the floor and her expression changed. What did you do? Nothing. She's in pain. Her ear, there's something in her ear. She needs a doctor right now. You were told never to touch her. I didn't touch her. Look for yourself. She's suffering. Mrs. Chun knelt down, looked at Sophia, then pulled out her phone. I'm calling Mr. Thornton. Call an ambulance. I don't take orders from you. Mrs. Chun's voice was ice. You're fired. Get out. What? No. She needs help. Get out. Elena's phone rang again. The hospital. Miguel was in the ER. They needed her consent for treatment. Her heart shattered into pieces. She looked at Sophia one last time, tears streaming down both their faces. I'm sorry, Elena whispered. I'm so sorry. She ran. At Queens General, Elena held Miguel's hand while doctors stabilized him. Infection in his port. Sepsis starting. They'd caught it in time, they said. He'd be okay. But it would mean another week in the hospital, more bills she couldn't pay, more prayers whispered in the dark. That night, sitting in Miguel's hospital room while he slept, Elena's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Marcus Thornton. Mrs. Chun gave me your number. You were right. Cholesteatoma. Pressing against her eardrum. Infected, causing severe pain. Surgery scheduled for tomorrow. They said if it had gone much longer, she could have lost her hearing completely in that ear. Elena's hands shook. Another text. Why didn't you tell me? She typed back with trembling fingers. I tried. I was fired before I could. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Come to Mount Sinai tomorrow. 3 p.m. Pediatric Surgical Wing, 5th floor. I can't. My son, bring him. I've arranged transport. Everything's covered. You need to be here. Elena stared at her phone, tears blurring the screen. Why? The response came immediately. Because Sophia's been asking for you. She won't stop drawing pictures of you. My daughter, who hasn't communicated in 5 years, is begging for you to come back. Please. The next afternoon, Miguel sat in a wheelchair beside Elena as they entered Mount Sinai's Pediatric Surgical Wing. Marcus Thornton met them at the nurse's station. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Elena. He extended his hand. Thank you for coming. How is she?